Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of This Week in Cleantech, your favorite 15-minute roundup of the biggest stories in climate and clean energy every week. This is Friday, August 7th, 2026. We got a first-time guest in waiting. Heather Clancy from Trellis will be joining us shortly. I'm Factor This content director, Paul Gerke, joined as always by Cleantech commentator Mike Casey of Tigercomm. Mike, how are you on this fine Friday?
I could not be better. Not be better, my friend. Well, first, for several reasons. I'm going to love the stories that we're going to cover in this episode. And two, it's really a pleasure to have Heather Clancy on. She was part of our Podcasters Roundtable during the pandemic. And it's good to have her back. We covered a story of hers back in October. So it's nice to have her finally on the show.
All right, man. Excited to get to it. You sound excited too, just your normal chipper self this morning. This is what happens when we do the show in the morning and not in the afternoons. Let's go. Everybody wake up. We love to hear from the viewers, the listeners, the people that make this show possible. If you got something to say to us, we want your 2 cents. You can send it to us at twictwick@tigercomm with 2ms.us. We'll find a way to make you a part of the program. We also do 5 stories that are relevant to our viewers and listeners every week. That's the core of the program. So let's dive into that. Story number 1, Mike, where are we starting?
Absolutely. Bloomberg has a story. I'm going to read it slowly. This headline, I love it. Solar to soon pass coal as China's top power capacity source. Paul Gerke.
We've been watching it approach that for some time now, Mike, and now it looks like we're finally about to see that tipping point. The China Electricity Council, they say solar is going to pass coal as China's largest source of generation capacity sometime this quarter. It might have already happened. At the end of June, solar was producing 1,274 gigawatts in China. That's 1 gigawatt behind coal's production. By the end of this year, China expects total installed capacity to reach more than 4,300 gigawatts, solar and wind making up about half of that. Thermal power share falling to just 31%. Mike, is this a look at our distant future?
Well, not if the current clown show of federal policy has its way. But I want to pull age on a lot of you youngsters out in the listening audience. I remember year after year when the fossil fuel lobby would have a refrain trying to put clean energy at the kids' table. China builds a coal plant once every 2 weeks. Why would we do clean energy when they're going to do the dirty energy? You know, we're hearing from them now, Paul Gerke. Crickets, zilch, nada. And that's because China's renewable build-out has actually slowed significantly after a policy overhaul ended guarantee revenue for wind and solar projects. But that has not stopped them from adding 72 gigawatts of solar in the first half of 2026.
That's all? Just the 72 gigawatts?
That's after adding 93 gigawatts in May of 2025 alone.
Sheesh.
Okay. So that policy shift dragged total power investment in the first 6 months of the year down more than 3% from 2020-25 to $54 billion, but the slowdown looks temporary. China is planning to add 240 gigawatts of new power capacity in the second half of the year, a 50% jump from the first half, and JP Morgan is calling for the same seasonal rebound. The grid's already straining to keep pace. Solar utilization fell to 91.4% this year from 94.3% the year before. But this is what's called a pleasant problem to have, Paul Gerke.
Yeah, champagne problem, Mike. Steak too juicy, lobster too buttery situation for them. Too much power generation.
Absolutely.
Wish we had that problem here in some places. Let's get to our second story this week. Story number 2. Timothy Kama of Politico. It's titled, How Solar Donors Helped Take Down a Trump-Backed Republican. Mike, what's it about?
I am uncharacteristically underdressed for this show. I have a T-shirt on, and that is for a reason, because first off, disclosure, I am involved with the Investment Tomorrow Coalition, and I'm going to unkindly say there's been a lot of second-guessing and ankle-biting of Tom Matzey, the pro-solar super PAC he chairs, and the Investment Tomorrow Coalition and what they're doing. The criticism has been that a lot of the spending has been on the margins in these political races that were otherwise going to go the way they wanted. This event last night is the strongest proof point yet that counters those criticisms. Solar-hating Freedom Caucus member Andy Ogles lost by 7 points in his primary. He was cruising comfortably to a win before Tom Matzey and the Investment Tomorrow Coalition came in and dumped $2 million against him. Ogle was a near fanatic hater of clean energy and railed against this entire form of affordable energy as some sort of scam. Other haters in Congress should now learn that attacking clean energy and raising Americans' electricity bills will not be an accountability-free exercise anymore. Andy, don't let the doorknob hit you, or the good Lord split you. Paul, what do you think?
I think that I generally try to stay apolitical on the show and leave you to do the punching there. So I'm going to say, just from a personal note, it is somewhat gratifying to see someone who is anti-clean energy fail, because I work in clean energy and I do this show with you, and I can see the difference that it's making on U.S. grids every single day. And so those folks that want to sort of rally against it in favor of fossil fuel interests are misguided, in my opinion. So that makes me happy. And then the other thing is, I just want to defer the couple seconds I would normally spend here yammering to allowing the viewers that are watching this podcast to see the beautiful t-shirt you have on. Could you stand up and show them what it actually says?
Absolutely. Here we go.
Yep. Don't. I just see the word don't. Stand up a little. Don't mess with solar. There it is. There we go. We didn't even see the gym shorts you got on. All right, Mike. Story number 3 this week. Where are we going?
Akshat Rathi from Bloomberg. Have you ever heard of him?
We mentioned him on the show from time to time. He's only been our most
frequent guest here, I think. The world crossed a major solar milestone, and no one noticed except Akshat Rathi did.
Akshat's got his eyes on it. Yeah, what's happening in China is really interesting, but this is a global thing. We're talking about the world hitting 3 terawatts of installed solar capacity. It took 10 years to build the first terawatt. The next 2 came in under 5 years. Bloomberg New Energy Finance expects that pace will keep accelerating. Global solar deployment should top 9 terawatts by 2036. China, though, as you may have suspected, is driving a lot of that growth. It's also outpacing its own grid, as we mentioned in the first story, although that is a bit of a good problem to have. Curtailment is rising because transmission and storage haven't kept up, which is why China's latest 5-year plan pushes for more renewables consumption than just production. I could think of some hungry data center developers that might want a piece of that pie. Mike?
Absolutely. Developing countries are not benefiting from this milestone quite yet. Their share of global solar deployment has basically stalled since 2020, even as costs keep falling. BNEF thinks that's about to change. Developing countries are starting from such a low base that they won't hit the same grid constraints that China is facing now, and by 2036, they could account for more than a quarter of all solar installed worldwide. Hotspots like Pakistan, Nigeria, and the Philippines are already showing what that looks like, with rooftop solar booming and battery adoption following right behind it. Even without much policy support pushing it, access to financing is still a bottleneck for a lot in these markets, more so than technical or workforce issues at this point. Paul, our 4th story?
Story number 4 this week, Justin Worland from Time Magazine. It's titled, "This is what the new rush to mine America looks like." What does it look like, Mike?
Yeah, we had Justin on the show. I thought he did a while back, I think. So great pictures in the story. Make sure you take a look at them. Thacker Pass in northern Nevada is bigger than the island of Manhattan, and it's the largest U.S. lithium mine built in decades. The lithium will be used to satisfy growing demand for EVs and batteries for the grid and data centers. Right now, the federal government has 40 mining projects sitting on a fast-track list, and they're moving through permitting faster than we've seen in years. The Fort McDermott, Paiute, and Shoshone tribes says Thacker Pass will destroy sites sacred to them. The Department of Energy will still took a 5% equity stake in the project and the company building it. Globally, more than half the minerals we need for the energy transition sit on or near land of indigenous or other land-connected communities, according to new research out in Nature Sustainability. Paul.
In the latest, in the All Roads Lead to Rome thing, most of the world's critical mineral supply, as you know, runs through China. Every story goes back to China, Mike. It turned into a vulnerability when Beijing hit back at Trump's tariffs a while back and threatened to cut off U.S. mineral supplies. That's what actually put the federal pedal down on permitting more than clean energy ever did, really. South 32's Hermosa project in Arizona just became the first mine to receive expedited federal permitting under a new streamlined process. It's an underground mine rather than an open pit, so the company's betting that a smaller visible footprint will buy it more goodwill within the community. Even Hell's Kitchen out on California's Salton Sea, which was originally pitched as a lithium play for EVs, is now leading hard on AI data center booms to justify itself now that the EV demand has cooled off a bit. Permitting speed is bipartisan, Mike. It's something that both sides of the aisle want. What is still completely unresolved is what a fast-tracked mine actually owes the people living next to it. I think the people that are about to live next to some data centers probably have very similar questions too, for different reasons. We could talk about that until the cows come home, but instead, let's bring the guest in. Story number 5.
Absolutely. Heather Clancy at Trellis. Why data center companies like Equinix and Oracle are buying fuel cells. Hey, Heather, lovely to have you on the show. It's good to see you again. We want people to read the story, but for those who have not yet, what's the really big takeaway?
So the really big takeaway is that the companies need independence. They need speed, the speed to power that you're talking about, and they're going to it anywhere. Equinix and Oracle are two of the biggest customers for Bloom, and I actually still remember that like 60-minute segment many years ago,
Me
right?
too.
So this is not a new company. They've been around quite a while. And Equinix has been flirting, if you will, with fuel cells for quite a while, but they're actually, like, one of their San Jose data centers is going to be running completely off of it, and they're going to use the grid as backup. I mean, and the real, it's not a secret what the reason is. It's like they need to get these things in operation as quickly as possible, and that's the quickest way they're going to do it.
We talk a lot about a variety of renewable energy technologies on the show. I'm not sure we've talked about fuel cells anytime recently. Yeah. So Heather, I'll be the dumb one and just be like, what's a fuel cell? Can you explain to our listeners and viewers what a fuel cell is and why they want them?
Absolutely. The reason this particular trend caught my attention is because of the coverage of the natural gas generators, right? The sort of off-grid generators that are powering, I'll mention them by name. The Meta, there's XAI has this massive data center power grid, right? So, and it's dirty. It's coming in under the permits. And so these companies that have goals are trying to do the same, but with a cleaner technology. So basically, a fuel cell converts using a much cleaner process. It's a chemical process instead of a combustion process. That's the simplest answer. And yes, these particular cells use natural gas. A lot of Bloom ones run off natural gas, but it's still a much cleaner solution than certain generators, right? There's all the scales of the different generators that you can put in place. And if you're going to, it's a practicality thing, right? You're not going to tell these companies not to put new power on the grid or off the grid, if that the case may be. You want them, though, to do it in the cleanest way possible. So if you're not going to do solar or wind or whatever, I don't know, geothermal, this is another source that I think is kind of under the radar a little bit. The biggest problem with fuel cells, I think one of the biggest problems has been the fact that there's just not that much capacity, right? I think the back orders, just as with some of the gas turbines, are pretty substantial. But yeah, I think it's worth looking at.
Heather, in your reporting for this piece, did you get a sense that the developers like Equinix think that fuel cells will lower community resistance? Because we've covered a lot on this show the shocking coalescing of public opposition across the political spectrum to data centers. They're at 70% opposition right now. Right. And from what I can tell, even for conversations I was having as late as like 14 hours ago, these developers are still coming to terms with just how opposed Americans are. Is that factoring into their purchases here?
So I on the Oracle side, I couldn't say, because they're very opaque about what they care about in terms of the climate. They just haven't been that vocal. Equinix is a pretty strongly committed company when it comes to having good water policy, good clean, they do a lot of matching of their power usage. I don't actually think that these particular deals were made with that in mind, but it sure is helping, right? So they've been working with with these companies for a while. And I think now it's like a lucky happenstance that they're able to now claim that these are they absolutely are quieter. There's less NOx, there's less SOx, right? So it is definitely less polluting and a little bit less bad. I don't know if you want to say it that way. I think maybe they're definitely going to use that now as a rallying cry, but I don't think it originally was thought of in that way.
Mike, you think we got time for one more question?
Absolutely.
All right, one more. And this is one you might not be able to answer, Heather, because you kind of touched on this a little bit with limited capacity. But do you see fuel cells as being more of a solution than they're being explored right now, not just in the data center AI space, but for larger, grid uses, for example, or applications in which might arise in the next few years in this sprint toward power in any way we can get it?
Well, actually, that's a great question. And I would say, and I haven't done the research to tell me the answer, but I would say that anyone with a big distributed load, like think retailers that are now unable to get power for a new store, they definitely would, I think, be looking at this sort of technology. I mean, I know that Walmart has plenty of fuel cells already. If Walmart is definitely on the Bloom list, so I wouldn't be surprised to see those that are kind of shut out of other deals now because there's so few clean projects to bid on that they would look at this source. Definitely.
I learned something today, Mike, about fuel cells.
So did I. No.
Well, that's not the way that's supposed to work. Damn.
I think we learn something every time we get a guest on this show,
true.
And Heather is no exception. Hey, pal, we got to go to our Cleantecher of the week.
All right, let's do it. Our Cleantecher of the week. Drum roll, please. Oh, they gave me a difficult name. You guys have got to think this is so funny. Every single time you got to put a pronouncer in, but I'm going to nail it. You ready? Cleantecher of the week is Aytaç Yilmaz, the co-founder and CEO of Or Energy. It's an Amsterdam-based startup. They just closed a $43 million Series A on iron air batteries. If you're not familiar, they can store renewable power for up to 100 hours. They just rust and unrust iron electrodes. No lithium, no cobalt. Or just signed a long duration storage deal in continental Europe. It's a 1 gigawatt-hour agreement with a Dutch utility called Budget Thuis. Congratulations, Aytaç, our Cleantecher of the week.
That's nothing to sneeze at for an A-round, man. I got to tell you. All right, well, we want to thank our wonderful producer, Brian Mendez, and Alex Peterson and Clara Quirin for helping gather these stories.
And thank you, the listener and viewer, for joining us for another round of This Week in Clean Tech, 100 and some odd episodes in. Thank you to Clara Hudson for making her debut on the show. Would love to have you back sometime. Please check out that article if you haven't already. And subscribe, leave a little feedback, share a story suggestion to the email we mentioned at the top of the show if you want to be a part of the program. You can find all the articles we discuss every week. There are links in the episode description, as well as in the post where this lives on factorthis.com. Until next Friday, be good, people.
And Paul, not to put you on the spot, but I believe Heather is in the data center camp, not the data center
You
camp.
finally found somebody to join your cohort. That's cool.
Just
data centers,
proper English is becoming a rare thing. Heather's got it. I put up with yours. It's okay.
The debate will continue next week.